Welcome to this episode of the Talent Forge, where together we're shaping workforce behaviors. I'm really excited because this episode is going to be a little bit different than the ones in the past. Today, we're going to actually introduce an online tool to you that can help shift different behaviors as it relates to workforce that has English as a second language. To introduce this tool, I'm excited to welcome Matt Sussman to join me, one of the key founders of FlowSpeak. And welcome to the show, Matt.
Hey, thanks, Jay. Happy to be on the Talent Forge.
So let's get to know the tool a little bit here. Tell me about FlowSpeak and what exactly is it designed to do?
Yeah, so FlowSpeak is an AI-powered platform that learners, employees from around the world can access from any internet connection through their phones or, their laptops, and they can have a virtually simulated conversational experience, helping them build up their confidence and their skill ability in closing sales and talking with customers, everyday, small talk, and just really helping them hone that experience.
So we all know how important communication is in the workplace. It's generally the number one skill set that's listed on every job description, and it's one of those things that creates the conditions for connection, culture, and understanding. So talk to me a little bit. How did you get into this space? Like, what brought you to something like FlowSpeak?
Yeah, I've been working in international education and cross-cultural, organizations for over 25 years. And as you mentioned, I've seen so many people that are, non-native speakers really struggle with the speaking piece of the experience. And reflecting on that, I thought, well, there's very few tools out there that just focus on speaking. There's a lot of great tools out there that offer, reading practice, or listening practice, writing practice, but there's very few tools until very recently for speaking, and that's because the technology was limited. So my co-founder and I actually connected during the pandemic, and I was in Tokyo and he was in Guadalajara, Mexico, and we both hit on the same kind of idea, like, wow, this technology is really interesting and it could do some great things for, working professionals, students around the world. And so we started brainstorming, just online together about how we could put this together to make something completely new, to help people get that, simulated conversation experience.
So it's funny that you mentioned Guadalajara. When I was young in my career, I was actually working in the industrial and systems engineering department at Wayne State, and I was sent to Guadalajara for 7 days to go work with some of the different manufacturing plants that were down there. Now, I had 2 years of Spanish speaking training in high school, 4 semesters of it in college, and I had used it absolutely 0 times other than to order something at a restaurant on rare occasion. And I thought that I had forgotten it all, but I get dropped into Guadalajara and I have a 45-minute taxi drive back and forth. That individual that was driving the taxi was the same person every day, thankfully spoke English, but helped me practice my Spanish. And I was shocked because I could read it, I could comprehend it if I was reading it, but because I hadn't practiced it, I felt so not confident in speaking it, in speaking the language, in hearing the language, being able to process it. So the fact that kind of founded this an interaction with that is pretty cool. But my question is, when we think about the workforce and the behaviors of the workforce, a large portion of our workforce in the United States of America is English as a second language. And that's true also globally. When we start thinking about English really is a language of business across Europe, across Asia, and a number of other spaces. So talk me through the why. Why is it important to provide this type of a resource for those employees that are English as second language speakers?
Right, right. Yeah, really, really good question. So, Uh, correct. There's lots of working professionals in the US that, English isn't their first language, but also internationally. We have professionals working in the medical field in the Middle East that are working with large, European conglomerates that want to make a good impression on their boss and their coworkers during Zoom meetings. We've got engineers in Japan that are trying to explain the schematics to this plan that they're building, in Southeast Asia, maybe to other partners that are also English is their second language. We've got employees in the United States that are working in warehouses, or maybe they're working in customer service. And they know that, if they miss that beat when the customer says something funny and they don't quite get it, or when a customer is upset and they need to be soothed, you need the right words for each of those situations. So my experience is I've spent many years living and working in Japan. And when the Japanese did international business when I first got there, believe it or not, they were using fax machines, and they're still using fax machines even to this day, right? So, but they're also using emails, any written communication that they can do. But they're starting to realize, like in the last few years, like that's just not cutting it anymore. And the world since the pandemic has switched to Zoom meetings. That's the standard. So now they have to jump on meetings and have conversations, which scares, a lot of people. And there's a lot that you can't catch because there's a big difference between what you learn in a textbook, which is very formal English, and which is what you need for any language. You need the foundation. But to be able to go to the next step, you need to have the everyday language skill, which only occurred until recently if you were living in an English speaking country and you would pick that up naturally. And that was a huge advantage. But there's so many people in the world, 1.5 billion trying to learn English, and if they're all stuck on textbook English, they're not reaching that next stage in their professional development. And that's where this new technology is exciting and can bridge that gap. So, our mission is to give everyone a voice, and we've got learners from around the world. It's the most exciting thing in the world to me is that it's working. The people that are using it, they're like, I love this. It's helped me. I'm more confident now. I've broken through. We're helping those learners go from that kind of, timid, less, proficiency level, like maybe a low intermediate or a high beginner level, to going to high intermediate to, kind of a lower advanced level, just kind of bridging that gap. And yeah, we get fantastic feedback from the learners when it fits just right.
So I love that you bring that up, and we're gonna get to the impact in just a few moments, but I'm gonna share a quick sort of it's just anecdotal, but I've had the privilege of training in 40 or so different countries, and out of those, I would say 90% of them, if not 95% of them, are non-English speaking native countries, right? Uh,
Right.
100% of my experience in interacting with populations there is so many of them have come up, and this is true in Japan as well, have come up and said, I'm sorry, my English is just not that good. I apologize. My English, and you could literally see this pain on their face. Now, ironically, half of the time, Matt, I'm not going to lie, the way that they told me that their English was not good was more grammatically accurate than a native English speaker. But, it was just, there's this confidence level. And when we get to impacts, I'm going to draw some thoughts on that specifically. But let's get into a little bit of the how. How does this work? What does it do exactly? What is somebody that goes through? If an organization were to say, you know what, I want to provide this as a solution to my employees to be able to elevate their English speaking language proficiencies, what would those people experience? How would they navigate it? Does it take a lot of time? What are some of those logistics?
Yeah. So I think on a scale of 1 to 10 of how difficult is this to implement in my organization, we've built our product to be a 1 and not go beyond that. Very easy. This is a self-learning platform. Basically, just sign up the employees and let them run with it. There's already built-in point systems and motivational badges and certificates that they can earn. We have a dashboard to keep track of their progress, but it's very, very simple. And the way the learning process works is it's just like texting, right? So everybody around the world knows how a texting experience works. Something, pops up that says, some kind of a statement or some kind of a phrase, and then it's your turn to respond to that. And it goes back and forth in that interaction. But instead of typing your response, you're speaking it. So you use the mic on your phone or on your tablet or your computer, and you go back and forth in a text visual basis. We have, photos that kind of create the scenario, but we've developed over 1,200 lessons by our education curriculum team based on a wide variety of scenarios. We have some everyday topics like walking your dog in the park and bumping into another dog owner, sometimes going to the dentist, but we have some professional development ones, such as how do you talk to the HR department about an issue you're seeing in the workplace, something sensitive? How do you ask your boss for a raise? How do you do a teamwork project and sound cooperative? What are the words around that? And how do you practice that in a real-time, conversation scenario? So,
So,
just like,
Matt,
yeah,
real quick, it's now I think that that's probably the defining distinguishing characteristic, at least one of them. But I would imagine that some of the audience is going, okay, well, what's the difference between this and say something like Duolingo or
right.
something of that nature? And I would imagine contextual business professional applications would be one of the distinguishing characteristics. Is that accurate, or help me understand that question?
Yeah, yeah, that's a fair question. It comes up quite often. I think Duolingo is a fun product if you're looking to learn a few words of French or learn a few words of Japanese, and maybe you're going to go there and travel for 2 weeks. But many of our learners will say, I used Duolingo, I took their assessment test, and I passed out, but I am still not confident. I still need way more practice. So Duolingo will take you up to maybe like a high beginner level at best. It kind of helps you, jump in and get your toes wet a little bit, get you interested in languages, and you can try lots of languages and learn basic greetings and how, talk about your family. But that's a whole world of difference when you're trying to use a language in a professional environment. So our product actually starts at high beginner and takes you to high intermediate or kind of a lower advanced level. So we're in a different segment. Our product is more professionally oriented, as you mentioned. So the content of it is very different. Duolingo and other products that focus on the beginner level do that because most of the world's learners are at that level, and so they need a huge audience. We're a more targeted niche audience, and we can focus on their specific needs, and that's what we're doing.
So, what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing you correctly, is your product actually builds sustainability and practice to elevate competence and confidence. It's not necessarily like we're going to teach you the language, we're going to give you the platform to practice the language.
Correct, correct. So I used to work for the Fulbright program, and this is a renowned program that sends, students and scholars to the United States and Americans to over 155 countries. When I gave a student, the golden ticket to come to the United States and study at their dream college, many of them had never lived in the United States before. Now, they could read and write English at an exceptional level. They're very bright people, but even they would have apprehension coming to the US. So, when they came to the US and they kind of immersed themselves and they made their friends, they would come back to Japan, fluent because they had that daily practice, asking questions in
Immersion.
class,
Yeah.
immersion,
Yep.
doing internships, joining volunteer organizations. And so they were acquiring the confidence of speaking through everyday conversations. Now, we can't give that golden ticket to every ambitious young person
Of
from
course.
overseas to come to the US. It's just not
Seems
going to happen, right?
expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you can't do it. So the Fulbright program would try to select out of thousands and thousands of applicants, the most merit based, selection process, but we could only choose the best and the brightest. So that told me that if learners could get that same experience of having conversational practice, they could also build up their confidence, and that's what we built.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. Immersion is, by research, one of the fastest ways to learn a language. We find ourselves with that consistent, steady practice. Now, I'm not trying to steal your thunder here, but I can speak from my own personal experience in working with global teams. And what I want to get to is a little bit of the impact of what impact does it have when we elevate the skills of English for English as a second language workers or workforce. Because in my experience, and I've had a lot of conversations. I do a lot of work on cultural adaptability, but having conversations is, yeah, there's points and times where I don't share an idea because I'm not sure how to frame the idea, or I didn't speak up because I'm really nervous how I would be perceived, or if I mispronounced a word in this group, or I didn't say anything because I could say it really well in my language, but I didn't think it would translate particularly well. And I think about how many lost innovations, how many lost ideas, how many lost impacts that were missed because of this confidence and competence and feeling of confidence and competence in English language proficiency. So I don't know if I just stole a major one, but that's one that I have seen. Can you help me understand what is the impact that you have seen? You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but what is the impact of being able to empower our workforce with this sort of confidence and competence in the behavior of speaking English?
Yeah, I think you're really on to an important point there. I think overall, this just opens up more communication, more transparency in your organization. You're 100% right that there's a power dynamic with language and American companies going overseas. I've seen lots of companies, they're being very respectful. They're making, an environment where all employees can feel included. You want to create a team environment and you want to replicate your culture that you've built and nurtured here in the US, and you want to replicate that in other areas of the world. And all of that's very admirable. But if you don't have the communication piece, it just turns into a lot of language that resides in a document and it's not actually being fulfilled in the organization. So I think it resonates with building culture of your organization. It helps with retention because if you're providing a tool and you're empowering your employees for personal development, they're going to say, this company cares about me. I've got a future here. Students, or excuse me, employees, when they're doing this practice, right? The way the technology, kind of going back to the how or what question, is when they're speaking, they're seeing their voice converted into text. It's also recorded. So that practice of doing this, 3, 6, 9 months over and over again, even the shyest student's going to say, wow, okay, if this technology can understand me, and if what I'm trying to say is being understood over and over again, then you know what? I'm going to take a chance in the next meeting, or I'm going to talk to my boss and try that situation in the real world. So it's helping them make that step, bridging that gap between, where they are currently and getting them to where they can really open up in the organization. So you're right. It's not just speaking. It's about, opening up culturally and fitting in the organization.
And I think that's so powerful. Matt, this is one of those tools, and this is obviously the first time that we've done anything with like a tool deep dive on the Talent Forge. If our audience wanted to learn more about the tool or more about the process, you and I discussed we're going to have a demo link in the show notes, but where else would they reach out to connect with you or to learn more about the tools? What would that look like for them?
Yeah, they're welcome to check out our demo video just to see like how does this all work and go to our website. and contact us to set up like a demo. Let's talk about what your organizational needs are, where are the most pressing need is. We can do a pilot. You're saying this is a new tool. I'm not sure how it fits. Let's get it in the hands of a few of the employees. When we do that, like 95% of the time, the employees say, I love this. I want to keep going. And that usually just says it all.
Yeah.
And so then we branch out there to other, other regions and other, departments within the company.
Yeah, that's perfect. And we'll get those links into the show notes. But Matt, I can tell you as a global consultant, speaker, trainer, and somebody who's worked with a lot of international teams, I served as a vice president for a global NGO where I was assigned to different parts of Europe, all non-native English speaking. I can tell you that I really, when I was introduced to the tool, I was like, wow, this is really something that has meaning because there's a lot of people out there that are not feeling seen, are not feeling like they're confident enough to speak up and to bring their authentic self, their ideas, and that's unfortunate. And the workforce in the United States, as well as the global workforce, I think will truly benefit from this opportunity to elevate their confidence and competence in English speaking. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you've done. I know how meaningful it is. And thank you for being here with us today to share this powerful tool with the audience.
Well, thank you, Jay. Yeah, I'm really excited about the potential of this. I think up until now, learning English and learning languages has been kind of a nice to have type of skill. And it's been kind of a warm, fuzzy field. I was an English teacher myself, but now we're bringing a more measured and practice opportunity for anybody around the world that really wants to level up. So I think it's very exciting. And I think a tool like we're building is going to be the standard in the next 5 years. It's just a matter of how quickly the organizations and schools implement it.
Yeah, it's so true and well said. So thank you again for being here and joining me. And I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for the tool. And thank you, audience, for tuning into this episode of the Talent Forge, where together we're shaping workforce behaviors.